Joey, we can't hear you.
How about now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay. My Linux client messes up constantly. I'm gonna report that. My video froze too, as you can probably tell. Okay, so sorry. So welcome to the weekly VOLTHA TST meeting. Last week we went over a bunch of the items for the release and the release matrix with outstanding problems in it. So before we dive in, does anybody have anything they'd like to bring up or jump into early? Okay. Just some more updates from the release. The release matrix, a bunch of problems have been worked on and resolved. There's still a few lingering issues, but I'm trying to get those cleaned up. There's a lot more green for the builds and the test runs. Specifically, the Helm chart problem with etcd and Kafka, the version that was in use. Here was able to do a couple of check-ins and upgrade the version, so that problem's been resolved. Let me see, sorry, I got too many windows open. I did start another, I did start another grid. I've been working on getting the component releases and the pieces of the project releases published. So I've found out through some reading, and Garish and Andreas have given me some instructions on some of this, but the release is basically being done in two pieces. Some of the components and the projects we published to GitHub. There's a download directory, and tags and branches and fun things are created in the repository. There's also a whole second piece that's different than the GitHub releases, and we're publishing some of the Java-based components out to Maven Central through a completely different process. And the steps involved with that, to do a single release, we have to create, or 3 Jenkins jobs are created. There are 2 pull requests that'll modify the version of a component in the POM XML file. And you have to go in and manually approve that. And that kicks off part of the release job. And then a job will run and build and test the component. So there's a secondary manual piece. We have to log into a Nexus server where the artifact that's produced by the release job is published into, and we have to go in and manually initiate a release of the content to push it out to Maven Central. And there's quite a long window of idle time in between some of these. So I started doing some of these releases last week, but a detail came up that wasn't part of the instructions. There's actually a hierarchy built into the components. It isn't really surprising, but there's dependencies and version strings for each of the components stored in the POM XML files. So when you go to do a release, you have to build in hierarchical order. Like the Sadist component is one of the lowest levels. It has no dependencies. So what we basically have to do is build the Sadist component, increment the version string, push it out to release, and then once it's finally published on Maven Central, then you go back to the next component, modify the POM XML file, just the dependencies, update the released Sadist version string, submit that as a job, and then run the release job for each of the components afterward to publish the new component plus the updated Sadist component. That's going okay for the most part. It's just cranking through the work right now, or cranking through the releases right now, and that go. So yeah, I'm redoing the component releases to make sure we have all the correct dependencies and the components that are being published. I did run into a problem with the MCAST release. For some reason, the release job seemed to succeed, but we didn't end up with releasable content on the Nexus server. So I got to look into that. That's the only one so far having that problem. DHCPL to relay, the OLT components, all of those seem to be releasing okay. So what's kind of left for the current release is going through the components and building everything in order and making sure everything is pushed out or is released. Torsten posted in channel earlier today. He found a new problem with the Helm charts, not Hell charts, with the Kale Helm chart and a script go download.sh. Torsten, are you on, and would you like to talk about it, or do you want me to keep going?
Torsten is not present, but I know what was an issue. That I think in the latest Kale version, the Go downloader is not present anymore. And I think he managed to circumvent this by dealing download of Kale the same way as it is done for the Volt control. I think he sent you some examples, Joey.
Correct.
How to deal with this?
Yeah. Two things. He did suggest augmenting or copying the Volt CTL installer to do basically the same thing, to grab the Helm chart or the Kale Helm chart. Yeah, that's perfectly fine for an answer. Where am I going with this?
By the way, what are those? This is the first time I heard of Kale and Mia.
Personally, I'm not familiar with the content. I just know there's a dependency in the Helm charts right now. And the way this surfaced, because okay, the underlying problem is there was a script on the site that was hosting the Kale Helm chart. For some reason, that has disappeared. The script has disappeared. We can no longer run a curl command to retrieve it. There's two potential sources for this. One is the Go download script is actually no longer being supported by the maintainer. There was some discussions going on. They're trying to find a new maintainer, and there was also a suggestion of another script that the person also wrote called Go Release that might be usable in place of Go Download. I don't know if that's the problem, or there's a second issue. The URL we use to retrieve the script through, it's raw.githubusercontent.com, I think. That URL, I believe we've had problems with before, and Matteo has told me GitHub had stopped publishing that resource because people were using it to publish their content like as a CDN service, and they were shutting it down because of it. So one of those two, either the project's no longer supported or we can no longer retrieve the content, is what's preventing us from grabbing the script that allows us to get the Helm chart. All of that aside, the reason this manifested is if you run the VOLTHA Helm charts, or I'm finding also Torsten found the BB Sim jobs were failing because this chart was not available. I know that's a lot to digest. Were there any questions around that? The fix seems to be get something in place to retrieve the Helm chart so we can load it into Helm again, and that should fix the problems.
So this also affects the releasing process or only the tests? Because in VOLTHA Helm charts, when I try to search the Kale, I don't see anything. So this is probably related with the tests, right?
I would wager it's probably a dependency of one of the what would be the master of the external Helm charts. I bet you is where it's coming in. Somebody saying something? There's a company, I think it's Biddle or Biddleby, maintains a lot of the core Helm charts. So like we don't construct a Helm chart to install Kafka or etcd or any of the larger charts. I bet you Kale exists as a dependency in one of those, and we pull it in whenever we say install the etcd Helm chart, just for a silly example. But I've seen.
My understanding was that Kale is used to write the logs, the Kubernetes wide log files, right? Or is it also used for other stuff? I only know it as a logging tool.
I personally haven't used it, so I don't know where it's actually being pulled in. But if it's for Kubernetes logging, maybe one of those charts are where it's coming in.
Now it's a vital component in the current setup of the test, because without Kale we wouldn't have any log files after the test.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Well, the release jobs do kick off builds and tests. So if we run the tests, we have potential to fail on this. Okay. Well, okay, that's a work in progress. Let me see, for VOLTHA and BBSIM, we had the problem with the Golang interpreter missing. So what's the word for this? I've changed the logic the script logic that was put in to show the command versions and fail hard when they did not exist, just to allow processing to continue so we can go in and have a little bit easier time with debugging. We do have another detail that came up around this, at least for the EC2 instances that we're launching to run the Jenkins jobs in. It does not appear that those have changed since November. So we're still trying to find why the VOLTHA and why the BBSIM builds are failing, because the Golang interpreter is not available.
Just to clarify, that's November 21.
November 21, okay.
Yep.
Cool. Let me see. Okay, so the only last item I have before we get into so I don't take over the entire meeting. After the components are released, then we just have to go in and create the VOLTHA 2.11 branches and tags and the bug fix branches and all that stuff. But I think this is the core of what we need to get finished in order to push the release out the door, barring anything new cropping up. Let me see. So any questions so far on any of this, or is there any other thoughts about Kale?
I just tried to find in the Slack channel if it is mentioned before, but I didn't see anything.
Okay, well, the error that manifests, I can at least show you that, is like if you try and run the Helm chart test or the VOLTHA Helm chart tests, or if you modify sources under VOLTHA Helm charts, this is the arrow that you'll end up seeing, and that's the missing chart. Okay, somebody posted that we have VOLTHA error cases. Please go through the document and provide comments. Would anybody like to volunteer for what this item is, and just go through what you would like to have done?
Hey, Yuri. Abhilash here.
Hey.
Well, what we are doing here is I have captured error cases in Volta core and OpenOLT adapter. We are in progress for OpenOE new adapter. Here, we have identified scenarios where in some cases core or adapter or any of the Volta services doesn't return an error or spins up a go routine and doesn't return the actual error back. And also cases wherein the services restart and what would happen to those requests or events which are being processed. So I have the file name, the function where the problem is, and the probable solution also I have mentioned.
Oops.
So sorry. Okay, so request all to just go through this document and provide your comments there. So yeah, we can start off with this, and any comments, we can take it up in the next TST. I would like everyone to go through this document.
Okay, cool.
Okay, this has only for the adapter and core. The way new adapter will be followed up later.
Okay.
And again, the next point I only have mentioned. Sorry about that. And yeah,
Abhilash, I remember we had a similar document before, like this one. Maybe I can find and post it in the chat.
yeah, sure, Mayor. I'll just check if you have missed anything. I'll just add. I'll merge both of them if there are one, and if you've shared those, I'll merge both. Okay. And the next item is on the on-demand ONT alarms. I understand that the master branch is blocked as of now, but request to put in your comments there. So we'll merge only once product 11 is released. Yeah, that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, cool. Okay, so I guess that's the end of the agenda items. We can open up the floor. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts or any topics you want to bring up?
Hey, Joey, I just wanted to mention that yesterday I did send to the VOLTHA TST a draft of the version 2.11 release blog, and would love to get any feedback on that. I'm obviously holding that until to publish it until the release goes, but just want to get it prepped and ready to go so that we can put it together and get it out in close proximity to the release. And then secondarily, I would like to have a techinar and schedule that within about 2 weeks of the release going out, and would like to hopefully from the TST get some volunteers to present and talk about the 2.11 release and highlight its features and any other details perhaps on who may be using it. So I will, I can put in here a link to the release blog and would appreciate any feedback. Also, if there are any volunteers who would actually present for the techinar, that would be great as well. Okay, so there, I just added the link for the blog itself. So ideally, it would be someone from the TST who might be able to present for the techinar. This is, it's just a, half hour, 40-minute type of talk. Several presenters would be fine, but, we want to get the word out to the VOLTHA community and beyond. And any volunteers?
quiet group this morning, Denise.
Yes, my sound, having a problem with it.
Is everybody on mute here? Hang on.
So, I mean, I think in lacking volunteers, I would think that maybe the TST leads could take this on. Or, I don't know if there's, any concerns or pushback, or if anybody, thinks we shouldn't do it, or if this release doesn't have enough content or whatnot. Anything?
As you said, in this case, if there is no volunteer, me and Amit will do that. Probably. We can talk it offline, okay?
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mihir.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I guess, does anybody else have anything else to add? If not, I guess we can close out the meeting for the week, and we'll see everybody next week.
Well, Joey, it seems like good progress from last week on the release. What's our gut feel now for when the release might go out?
I'm feeling pretty good about this week with all the green we had on the components page. The big thing right now is getting the Golang interpreter straightened out and just cranking through and building all the components, which is just that's a manual op, and that's a little bit time consuming, but there doesn't seem to be any crazy problem showing up. That seems to finally have settled down. So I'm shooting for this week, sometime this week.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, yeah, good work. I know you were not feeling well last week. Hopefully you're feeling better now too as well, but thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess I'll see everybody next week.
Thanks, Joey. Take care, man.
Yeah, no worries.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Thanks,
Yep.
Joey. Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.